So let's take a look at number 1. I'm solving the equation, so I need to get the variable all by itself. What would I need to do to get that d all by itself? Perfect. Since it's a -9, I would add 9 to both sides to get it to cancel. So then I'm just left with d, and then what's 18 plus 9? 27. So d is equal to 27. Two is a little bit different. How would I get that h all by itself? Perfect. Since h is being multiplied to -3, I divide it, so h is equal to -10. Awesome. What would I do for 3? Multiply -7 on both sides. Since k is being divided by -7, I do the opposite and I multiply. So k is equal to 14. Perfect. For 4, what should I do first? Add 2. Awesome. So 3a is equal to 33, and then what should I do? Divide 3, so a is equal to 11. And you can always check your work by taking your answer and plugging it back into your variable, and when you solve it, it'll make sense. So you can always check your answer. If you have time on the midterm, I would say check your work, just to make sure you did it right.
Are we submitting this?
5, again, a little bit different. I have 2 m's here. So what would I need to do to solve? Combine like terms. What is -9m plus 4m? -5m. Everything else stays the same. Now what should I do next? Add 6 to move it to the other side. So -20 is equal to -5m. And then what should I do? Divide by -5. So m is equal to? 4. Awesome. So it's important with these questions, just make sure you do one step at a time. Be organized with your work. Organization is key in math. I know some of these you can do in your head, but just make sure you are organized. All right, what should I do for 6? Combine like terms. So I'm adding the 2 n's together. We're doing the same thing, but we just happen to have fractions here. What is 2/3 n minus 1/3 n?
1/3 n.
Awesome, 1/3 n. Plus 14 is equal to 19. Minus 14 on both sides. Next, because we're trying to get that n all by itself. So I have 1/3 n is equal to 5. Now what can I do? Awesome. To get rid of that 1/3, I'm going to multiply by 3. Because right now it's like we're dividing n by 3. So we multiply to get it to cancel. So n is equal to 15. For 7, what should I do first? Minus 3x, move it to the other side. So that's, I'm combining it with these 7x because they're like terms. So that gives me 4x. What else could I do? Minus the 5. So what's -1 minus 5? -6. Now we're trying to get the x all by itself. So what should I do next? Divide by 4. So x is equal to -6 over 4. Can I simplify this fraction? What goes into both 6 and 4? I can divide them both by 2. So that gives me -3 over 2. All right, what should I do first for 8?
Just combine.
I could combine like terms, but if I have parentheses on a number out front, I need to make sure that I distribute before I combine things. Do the parentheses first. So what's -3 times 2v? Awesome. We got to multiply that negative 3 to both the 2v and the 9. So we get negative 6v minus 27. We can leave the left side the same. Do I need the parentheses on the left side? No, I don't need them because I'm not multiplying anything. So I can just get rid of them. I can combine like terms. What is negative 5v minus 2v? Negative 7v.
You add 6v to get that over, and then that's v minus 6 equals negative 27.
We're combining like terms, so we add the 6v. So it would be negative v.
v minus 6.
I can also add the 6. What's negative 20 plus 6? Negative 27 plus 6.
Negative 20. So v equals 21.
Perfect. Last step is we just have to divide by negative 1 to get the v all by itself. Negative 21 divided by negative 1 would be positive 21. All right, let's look at 9. So for absolute value questions, we need to get the absolute value bars all by itself. So we get the bars alone. That's step 1. So we have to get the absolute value bars all by itself. So my absolute value is being multiplied by 5. How do I move the 5 to the other side?
Divide.
I divide. The opposite of multiplication would be division, so I have to divide it. So remember, you always do the opposite. So now I have the absolute value of 3x plus 7 is equal to, what's 15 divided by 5? 3. Now to get rid of the absolute value bars, we have to split it up into 2 different questions. Because what does the absolute value bar always do to whatever inside? Makes it positive. So technically the inside, this 3x plus 7 could be equal to negative 3, but the bars make it positive. So I would say 3x plus 7 is equal to positive 3, just like it's written there. But I also have to say that 3x plus 7 is equal to negative 3. So step 2, when solving absolute value questions, is to split it up. So we split it into 2 separate equations. And then step 3 would be to solve both separately. So for the first one, how would I solve for x? Subtract 7 first. So 3x is equal to negative 4. What would I do next? Divide both sides by 3. So x is equal to? Negative 4 over 3. So that's one answer. Now we have to do the same thing over here with the second one. So what should I do first? Subtract 7 on both sides. So 3x is equal to negative 10. And then what do I do? Divide both sides by 3. So x is equal to negative 10 over 3. So these are my 2 answers. So for absolute values, you will always split it and you'll get 2 answers. All right, so I have another absolute value bar question here. So step 1 is to get the absolute values all by itself. So how do I move everything else to the other side?
Divide by 4.
Before I divide by 4, what do I have to move? I have to move the 9, because if I divide everything by 4, I'm dividing this by 4, this by 4, and this by 4. But 9 divided by 4 would be a fraction, so we don't really want to do that first. I want to add the 9 first. So I'm going to add 9. So everything else stays the same. Negative 4 times the absolute value of 3 over 8v plus 12 is equal to, what's negative 45 plus 9? Negative 36. Now what can I do? Divide everything by negative 4. So when I divide the left side by negative 4, it just crosses out with that negative 4 out front. So now I have the absolute value of negative 3 over 8v plus 12 is equal to negative 36 divided by negative 4 would be positive 9. Now what do I have to do to get rid of the absolute values? Make two equations. I split it up into two separate equations. So I have negative 3 over 8v plus 12 is equal to positive 9. And negative 3 over 8b plus 12 is equal to what? Negative 9. So when we split it, we do a positive and a negative. What is equal? Any questions so far? All right, let's solve. So what would I need to do first to solve my first equation here? Subtract both sides by 12. So I get negative 3 over 8v is equal to negative 3. What can I do next?
Do the reciprocal.
Awesome. I multiply by the reciprocal. So I would multiply both sides by negative 8 over 3. Multiply this by negative 8 over 3. So it cancels out on the left. I'm just left with v. On the right, how do I multiply these together? So when I multiply fractions, I just multiply straight across. So this would be negative 3 times 8, which would be 24 over 3. And can I simplify 24 over 3?
Yes.
What does it simplify to? 8. So v equals 8. So that's our first answer. We have to do the same exact thing with the other one here. So what would I do first? Subtract 12. So negative 3 over 8v is equal to negative 21. What would I do next? Multiply by the reciprocal. So I multiply by negative 8 over 3. Multiply by negative 8 over 3. So it cancels out on the left. I'm just left with v. I can make it negative 21 over 1. And then how would I multiply? I can multiply straight across. So 21 times 8 would be
168.
awesome, 168. If you don't know that just off the top of your head, write it down. Do 21 times 8 and multiply it out. So 168 over 3. Can I divide this? Let's try. 168 divided by 3. 3 goes into 16 how many times? 5. And 5 times 3 would be 15. And 3 goes into 18 how many times? 6. So v would be equal to 56. Yeah, if you wanted to, we know that 3 goes into 21 negative 7 times, and then just do negative 7 times 8. That works too. Which would be easier. So if you want to divide, you can do that also. For number 11, we're solving, and we have to determine whether the equation has one solution, no solution, or infinitely many solutions. So it's just a different way of asking us to solve, but we are still doing the same thing. What should I do first to solve? Distribute. So I'm going to distribute. I have to distribute on both sides. So what's 4 times negative 5n?
Negative 20n.
Negative 20n. And 4 times 11?
44.
44. So then that's equal to what's negative 4 times 5n?
Negative 20.
Negative 20n. And 4 times negative 11?
Positive 28.
Positive 28. What would I do next to solve? I can add 20n, so I want to get the n's on one side and the numbers on the other, so add 20n. So it cancels out, but what's negative 20n plus 20n? 0. That cancels out too. So then I'm just left with 44 is equal to 28. Is this true?
No.
So what do you think my answer is?
No solution.
No solution. So if you get something that's not true, your answer would be no solution. So if you get like 0 is equal to 6, something that's not true, it's no solution. It's infinitely many solutions if you get like n is equal to n, or let's say we ended up with like 44 is equal to 44, something that is true, this would be infinitely many. And it would be one solution if you get like n is equal to a number. So like n is equal to 4, that would be one solution. For 12, we are writing the sentence as an inequality. How would we write a number x is more than 38? So x is greater than 38. Perfect. Any questions there? For 13, when we are solving inequalities, we solve them similarly to how we would in an equation, if it was an equation. But we just have to put them on a number line to graph. So what would I do to solve for v here? Perfect. Add 5 over 2 to both sides, so it cancels out there. So I have 8 plus 5 over 2 is greater than v. How do I add a fraction and a whole number?
Add a whole number of fractions.
Awesome. Add a 1 under the 8, and then we got to multiply the top and the bottom by something to give us a common denominator. So what can I multiply? Perfect. 16 over 2. So I just changed the 8 over 1 to be 16 over 2. So 21 over 2 is greater than v. So when I put that on a number line, about what number is 21 over 2? If I were to divide 21 by 2, what do I get?
10.5.
10.5. Perfect. So if I change this into a mixed number, it'd be 10 and 1/2, or 10.5. So when I put that on a number line, I could say like 10, 11. Just putting some numbers on a number line. So at 10.5, am I going to have an open circle or closed circle?
Open.
Open, because it's just a greater than sign. So I'd have an open circle there. And now to decide which way I'm going to shade, I could always just plug in a number. So like if I said 9, let's say I plugged in 9 for v. Is 10.5 greater than 9? Yeah, it is. So I would shade where 9 is. We can always test the other side too, just to be sure. So let's say I said 12, and I plugged in 12 here. Is 10.5 greater than 12? No, that's not true. So I wouldn't shade on this side. So I only shade where it's true. So I shade to the left. So here, doing the same thing. We're solving our inequality. What should I do first? Combine like terms. What's 4 minus 11? -7. Perfect. I'm going to add 7 to get it to cancel because I want that n all by itself. So n is less than -10. So when I put -10 on a number line, I could say -10 is here. Then I would have -9, -8, -11, -12. Just some numbers on a number line. Remember, your number line always goes from smallest to largest. So as you go further to the right, your numbers are going to get bigger. Would I put an open or closed circle at -10? Open circle, because if it's just less than or greater than, we get an open circle. If it was less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, we fill in that circle, so it'd be closed. But here we have an open circle. And then let's see what number would make sense? I'm going to pick any number to the left. What's a number that's to the left of negative 10? So if I said negative 11 is less than negative 10, is this true? Yeah, negative 11 is less than negative 10. So where would I shade? To the left. I shade where it's true. So I would shade to the left. We can test a number that's greater. So let's say I said negative 8. So negative 8 is less than negative 10. Is this true? No. So we don't shade on that side. We only shade where it makes sense, where it's true. Verse 16. What should I do first?
Multiply negative 9 on both sides.
I can multiply negative 9 on both sides. What happens to the inequality when I multiply by negative or divide by a negative number? It flips. Perfect. So this turns into a positive 18, but we have to remember to flip the inequality. So instead of being greater than, I'm now changing it to less than. Anytime you multiply both sides by a negative number or divide, when you have an inequality, you have to flip the inequality. So we flip the sign when we multiply or divide by a negative number. So now I have 18 is less than x. So let's put 18 on a number line. So I'm going to say 18. Yeah. As we go to the right, our numbers get bigger. So I would say 19, 20. As we go to the left, our numbers get smaller. So this would be 17, 16. You can put however many numbers you want. This might be a multiple choice question, so just look at your options. Do I have an open or closed circle at 18?
Open.
An open circle. Now let's test a number. What's a number that I could test? 19, sure. So I have 18 is less than 19. Is this true? Yeah, so where am I going to shade? To the right. I shade where 19 is. If it's true, shade that way. All right, we're going to do one more inequality one. 17. What should I do first? Subtract 25 on both sides. What's negative 25 minus 25? Negative 50. What would I do next? Divide both sides by 10. Perfect, because we just want that b all by itself. So now I have b is less than negative 5. Is this true? I'm sorry. Not yet. We haven't plugged in a number. Do I put an open or closed circle at negative 5? An open circle. I'm just going to put some more numbers on my number line. So this would be negative 4, negative 3. Over here, negative 6, negative 7. Remember, because our numbers go smallest to largest. So let's plug in a number. What number can we plug into test? Negative 6. Is negative 6 less than negative 5? Yes, this is true. So I shade less than over here. Any questions? All right, so looking at 19, here I have two inequalities in my equation. What would I need to do?
First, you
gotta isolate the variable. Awesome. If I subtract 3, I have to do it on both sides. So this would be negative 5 is greater than negative 5x, which is greater than or equal to negative 20. Now what would I do next? So I divide everything by negative 5 because we're trying to isolate that variable. It just so happens that it's like 2 equations in one, so we have to do it to everything. So this turns into 1. What happens when I divide by a negative number?
Positive. It
Well,
changes, it flips the sign.
it flips the sign. So instead of being a greater than sign, it flips it to a less than. And we have x. And then again, we divided by a negative, so we have to flip the sign. So it would be less than or equal to 4. So x is in between, bless you, 1 and 4. So let's put that on a number line. Because it says to graph, so when we have to graph, we put it on a number line. I have a point at 1 and another one at 4. So I'm going to put some points in the middle here. So this would be 2, 3, can make 5, 0. At 1, would I have an open circle or a closed circle? Open circle, because it's just a less than sign. So an open circle at 1. What about at 4? Closed, because it has a less than or equal to. Now we want to figure out if we're going to shade in between these two numbers or outside. So I want to plug in a point to figure out where I'm going to shade. What's a number that I could plug in? Just anything besides 1 or 4. So sure, let's plug in 3. So I put 3 into the x. Is 1 less than 3?
Yes.
Yeah, and is 3 less than or equal to 4? Yeah, so this is true. So since 3 works and 3 is in between, I'm going to shade in between. So this is what our graph should look like. So part of our answer should be this. 1 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 4. The other part of our answer is this number line, the graph here. All right, with 20, we're going to do the same thing. Again here, instead of it being like 2 parts in 1, we just have them separate. But we're going to do the same thing. I just need to isolate each of my x's. So what would I have to do in the first equation? Add 5 to both sides. What's negative 8 plus 5? Negative 3. So x is greater than negative 3. And then what would I do in the second one? Divide both sides by negative 3. What do I have to do when I divide by a negative? Flip the sign. So instead of it being a greater than or equal to, it changes to a less than or equal to negative 7. Now let's put them on a number line. We start with the smallest number. Which number is smaller, negative 7 or negative 3? Negative 7. So I'd put negative 7 over here. We can put a negative 8, negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2. At negative 3, do I have an open circle or closed circle?
Open.
An open circle. And at negative 7, an open or closed circle?
Closed.
Closed. Perfect. Now I'm either going to shade in between or outside. So let's pick a number. What number can we pick? Anything. Negative 5, something right in between. Is negative 5 greater than negative 3? No. So what do you think? Am I going to shade in between or outside if this is not true? I shade outside. Any questions here? Awesome. So this is part of our answer, and this is part of our answer. For 21, it says you have 40 minutes to finish 20 math problems for homework. Write and solve an inequality that represents how many minutes you can spend per problem. 20x is equal to 40. Well, it's 20x, because we have 20 math problems. So I'm trying to figure out how much time per math problem. So I can multiply that together. Is it going to be equal to 40? If I have 40 minutes to finish, it has to be less than 40. Because 40 minutes is like my maximum amount of time. So I would say less than. So it would have to be less than or equal to 40. Because it's asking for an inequality, which inequality has to have a greater than or less than sign, not an equal to. So that would be our inequality. We can't spend more than 40 minutes with the question, so that's why we picked a less than sign. All right, for 22, we're solving the inequality. What should I do first? Skylar.
3p to the other side.
Perfect. If I ever have more than one variable, I'm going to combine the variables. So I want to get the variables on one side, the constant numbers on the other. So I'm going to move my variables to one side by adding 3p. So that makes it 8p plus 2 is greater than or equal to negative 6. Now we want to move our numbers to the other side. So subtract 2. So 8p is greater than or equal to negative 8. And then what would I do?
Divide both sides.
Divide both sides by 8. So p is greater than or equal to negative 1. Grade 23 says the senior class plans a school trip to Washington, D.C. Students should bring money for meals and souvenirs. So we have two things, meals and souvenirs. They're told to bring at least $65, but no more than $150. Write a compound inequality that represents the amount of money a student can bring. So we're just talking about the amount of money. The meals and souvenirs doesn't even matter. We're just talking about how much money. So it's got to be something in between 65. The amount of money that I'm bringing, is 65 less than the amount of money or greater than? What type of inequality should I put here?
Greater than or equal.
Well, the x has to be,
Equal to.
so the x is going to be the bigger number because it has to be something bigger than 65. And it's at least 65, so we can say that less than or equal to. Now we're still talking about the same compound inequality, so that same x. But we know that x has to be less than or greater than 150? Less than. And again, we put a less than or equal to, because it can be equal to one of these two amounts, or it could be anything inside. So this would be our compound inequality. All right. For 24, 25, and 26, we are solving the inequality.
You have to do one negative, one positive.
Perfect. So to get rid of the absolute value bars, we have to do two problems. So do I keep the sign the same?
No.
Which one changes?
Plus. Oh, wait.
So it stays the same for the first one, the same one. But then I have to make another problem, x plus 7. When I flip the sign, that's when I make it negative. So we had it right. Whenever we flip the sign is when we use the negative. So we keep the original, but we get rid of the absolute values. Then when we rewrite it, we flip the sign and make what it's equal to, I guess you could say, negative. Flip and make negative. So to solve this, we'd subtract 7 on both sides, so x is less than negative 6. And then for the other one, again, we subtract 7 on both sides, so x is greater than negative 8. We do the same thing we did in the other questions. We put them on a number line. Which number is smaller, negative 6 or negative 8? Negative 8 is smaller, so negative 6. Put some more numbers on my number line. Do I have an open circle at these 2 points or a closed circle? Open circle. Now we're either going to be in between or outside. So let's plug in a number into the original equation just to check. So what's a number I could plug in?
2.
Okay, 2 would work. 2's way outside, but we can do that. So when I plug in 2 into x, so I get the absolute value of 9. What's the absolute value of 9? 9. So 9 is less than 1. Is this true?
No.
No. So since 2 was outside, outside doesn't work. So that means inside's going to work. We can check a number inside just to be sure. So let's check -7. When I plug in -7, I get 0 is less than 1. Is this true? Yes. So inside works. So this would be our answer. So 25 and 26 are the same, but before we split it up into two equations, for 26, I need to get the absolute value all by itself first. So isolate the absolute value. So you would just have to subtract 4 and then divide by 4 to get that absolute value all by itself. 27, we want to find the domain range of the function represented by the graph. So the domain and range. Domain talks about what type of values? X values. And the range is the Y values. So for my points here, I want to list my X values for the domain and the Y values for the range. So for my domain, I'm going to write my coordinate points. So for the point all the way to the left, what would my coordinates be here? -2, 2. What about the next one? -1, 1. The next one? 0, 0. And then the last one? 1, -1, because it's X then Y. So we're just looking at our X values. So it would just be the X's here. So my domain would be -2, -1, 0, and 1.
It doesn't matter if you put it or not.
It doesn't matter. The range, we're talking about the Y values. So that would be 2, 1, 0, and -1. So that would be our answer. So 29 says the amount of calories you burn after riding X miles on your bike is represented by the function Y is equal to 125X. Find the domain of the function and determine whether it's discrete or continuous. So for the domain, we're just looking at the X value. So what type of equation is this? So for something like this, it's in the form of y equals mx plus b. So it would be a line. So because this is in the form of a line, it's going to be a line. With the slope, is our slope positive? Yeah, our slope is 125, so positive line. Is our line discrete or continuous? Continuous. All right, let's look at 30. What would I do to solve for 30? Yes.
You would implement 13 for Q of X.
Perfect. It says Q of X is 13. So I would take 13 and plug that into the Q of X. So I would say 13 is equal to 1/4 X plus 10. Now, how would I solve for X? Perfect. Subtract 10 on both sides. So 3 is equal to 1/4 X. And then what should I do?
3 times 4.
Multiply both sides by 4 to get it to cancel. And 3 times 4 is?
12.
So 12 is equal to X. Awesome. 31, we do the same thing. T of X is equal to 8. So I would take 8, plug it into the T of X. So 8 is equal to 8X. And how would I solve for X? Divide by 8. So what does X equal? 1. 8 divided by 8 is 1. Something that is something that's discrete would be like points like this. So it would give you values kind of like how our sequences had like points. So that would be discrete. All right, let's look at 32. You spend $5.10 on fruit. Apples cost 30 cents each, while oranges cost 45 cents each. The equation 0.3x plus 0.4 5y is equal to 510 models the situation where x is the number of apples and y is the number of oranges, which is not a possible solution in the context of the problem. Well, it doesn't give us anything. So the question like this would be something multiple choice where it would give you multiple options, and it would probably say like x could be this, well, y is this, something like that. But you would use this equation. But this question is set up to be multiple choice, and it doesn't give us anything, any choices. Let's look at 33. Describe the slope of a line, then find the slope. Is our slope here positive or negative? Positive, because the line goes up. So we know that the slope's positive, and then let's find the slope. How can I find the slope? I can use my slope formula, so y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or I can just count the rise over run. Be careful with your values on the y-axis and the x-axis if you're going to just count rise over run. We go up 1, and we go to the right 3. So this would be rise over run, which would be 1 over 3. Any questions here? For the next two, I think that you guys skipped absolute value graphs with St. Hilaire. You did? There's not going to be questions like these two on the midterm. So we're going to skip them. Yes. Also 36. You guys didn't talk about transformations? No, so skip it. Again, I looked at the midterm, it's not on there. So you can skip these. So let's look at 37. Here we are writing an equation of a line with the given slope and y-intercept. Well, how do I write the equation of a line? Given the slope and the y-intercept. Y equals mx plus b. Our favorite formula. So let's just plug in the slope and the y-intercept. So y equals minus 8. Perfect. 1/5 x minus 8.
Wait, is that... And point slope is y minus y1.
So point slope would be y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. These two formulas you definitely have to have memorized for the midterm. They never go away. You'll do them again in geometry next year, in algebra 2, in pre-calculus honors. They never go away. So you guys got to put these in your brain. So for the next one, we are writing an equation of a line that passes through the given points. So which one do you want to use, slope-intercept or point slope? Point slope. We could use either one here. It gives us points, so we may think that point slope would be better, but does it give us the y-intercept? Yeah. Whenever the x is 0, this is your y-intercept. Either way would work here. Let's use we'll use point slope, just for fun. So, I need to find my slope. Slope was not given. So I got to know my slope formula too. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this would be x1, y1, x2, y2. Plug everything in. So 4 minus 5 over 0 minus negative 3. Be careful with your signs. Negative 1 over 3. So my slope is... So y equals negative 1/3 x plus 4. Perfect. We can just use slope-intercept. Because again, if the x is 0, whatever the y is, that is your y-intercept. So all we need to do is find the slope. If it didn't give us the y-intercept, we would have to use point slope form. Also, for questions like this, your midterm is mostly multiple choice. Use your answer choices to kind of help you. Look at your answer choices and think, are my answer choices in slope-intercept form or point slope form? 70% of the midterm is multiple choice.
So what would be like free response?
39 is the same, but it gives us the points as like x and y here. So we could always just make it coordinate points. So I could change it to 2, -3 and 0, -6. Does it give me the y-intercept here? Yeah. Whenever x is 0, the number with it is the y-intercept. So here we would find our slope and plug it in. I'm going to jump to 40. So we have to write an equation in point slope form of the line that passes through the given point and has the given slope. So it's asking for point slope form. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So the point that's given is my x1, y1, and it gave me my slope. So I just need to plug everything in. Y minus 11 is equal to -5 times x. What happens when I have minus -3?
Plus.
Turns into a plus. Don't just leave it as minus -3. If this is a free response question, make sure you change it to a plus. So this is the same, but it doesn't give us the slope. So we're going to have to find it. So my points are 1, -2, and -5, -4. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2. To find my slope, I use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So -4 minus -2 over -5 minus 1. This would be -2 over -6. What does this simplify to? 1 over 3. Perfect. So let's plug it into point slope form. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So I can use my x1 and y1 and my m. So y minus -2 is equal to 1/3 times x minus 1. What happens when I have minus a negative? It becomes a plus. So don't forget to change that to a plus sign. So that would be my equation in point slope form. So if it doesn't give you the slope, you have to find the slope first. We're going to do the last 2 on this page, and then we'll be done for today. So we're going to write an equation of a line that passes through the given point and is parallel to the given line. Parallel means what? Same slope. So what's my slope here? -2. I just look at my equation and see y equals mx plus b. My m is -2. So my slope in my new equation is going to be the same, which is -2. Now my point is going to be my x1 and y1. So I'm going to plug that into point slope form. So y minus y1 is equal to -2 times x minus x1, -3. What happens when I minus a negative? Turns into plus. So this would be my equation. Any questions here? All right, for the next one, what do I know about the slope if it is perpendicular? Opposite reciprocals. So opposite meaning if one's positive, then the other one's going to be negative, and reciprocal means that it's the flip of it. So what's my slope here? -2 over 3. So my new slope is going to be the opposite reciprocal of this. So this one's negative, so my new slope is going to be positive, and since it's 2 over 3, I flip it and make it 3 over 2. So you just have to change it to the opposite reciprocal. Now we can plug everything into our point slope form. So y minus y1 is equal to m, which is now 3 over 2, times x minus x1. So minus negative 4. What happens when we have minus a negative? Turns into plus. So that would be our equation.